This is Ivy Unleashed,
a Gold Ivy production. Welcome to Ivy Unleashed
Season 3.
Season 3, our first guest episode, and we are about to wow you. We are wowed. We are kind of starstruck right now. With us today, we have Jessie Golden. Thank you so much for being on Ivy Unleashed. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited.
We are so excited. Like Andrea said, this is surreal for us because I found you, maybe 6 months ago, listening to Dr. Will Cole's podcast and hearing you speak. And I was just like, this is what more people need to be talking about because it's normalizing natural remedies, healing modalities that I had to find the last 5 years and talk about coffee enemas and being the weird one and hearing you. And then we were connected to you through Alan Stein Jr. So it's just been divine timing and we could not be more excited.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I just have to say, I hear the Midwest accent. And it like tugs at my heart. Like it just feels like home.
Because you're from Chicago.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we were talking about this before we started recording that we know so much about Jessie from reading her book. She has a podcast, following her on social media, hearing her on other people's podcasts. And so we know a lot about your story from growing up in Chicago, but our listeners might not. And so can you kind of talk a little bit about where you grew up, what life is like, and kind of get your story started into your 20s?
Yeah. Well, so I grew up in Chicago in the early 80s. And I always like to preface that because I think growing up in the Midwest in the 80s was not the healthiest environment. Everything was microwaved and fast food was the thing. And, there really wasn't much talk about health. Like, health was like eating canned vegetables. I mean, it was, but I was always I always feel like I was an unusual child looking back. And I'm so grateful that I had a mom. I was raised by a single mom who just let me be me. And I was just unusual. I spent a lot of time alone. I was very spiritual as a kid. That's a whole nother story. But I kind of feel like I wasn't even here for the first 10 years of my life. I was kind of in two planes. But I became a vegetarian at age 11. I'm no longer a vegetarian, but just setting the stage of like how unusual I was. It was so unusual to like become a vegetarian at that time. Like my grandmother literally said, "You're going to die if you don't eat meat." But my mom was like, "Hey, I'll take you to a nutritionist. We'll figure out what to feed you." And she would drive me to the city to like go to this little health food store to get like lentils and soy and tofu and stuff like that. But that was the first time I kind of made the connection between what I was eating and how I was feeling. And I became a vegetarian because I just realized I was eating animals. And I was like, I don't want to eat animals. I love animals. And my mom was a dancer. She had a dance studio. So I grew up as a ballerina in the dance studio. I was raised in that environment. And if anybody knows anything about dance, it's like, it's your life. The studio goes with you. Everything you learn in there taught me discipline and consistency. I mean, it really laid the foundation for everything in my life, but it also laid a bunch of bad stuff as far as like negative mindset, criticizing every single thing that I did and trying to reach this epitome of perfection that didn't exist. And ignoring my body because you're never taught to listen to your body. It's like push through it, just get over it, don't whine, and just do it. Like just shut up and dance. I was modeling since a child. I didn't love it. I always kind of hated it, but my mom really encouraged me. I left home when I was 17. I went to Florida on spring break and I never came home. Literally never came home. I was like, peace out. So I've always been very independent and strong-headed. And I moved to Miami and that's when I started modeling as a career. Again, I didn't love it, but I loved that it gave me freedom, something that I had never had growing up as a ballerina, as a dancer. My schedule was always so full. And here I got to work like once a week. And the rest of the time I was on the beach, which living in Chicago. It was like the dream of like being in the sun every day. And I started modeling, and I was still dancing. I would take class actually at the Miami City Ballet School. And then eventually I became a yoga teacher and moved to California, continued modeling. And everything kind of like, the first time that I felt bulletproof in my life was when I was 29. And that's when I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis. And it was a complete shock to not only me, but everybody else. Like, I was considered the epitome of health. I was always on the forefront of what was happening, hanging out at Erewhon and drinking reishi, in the early 2000s. And, I was always doing like what was next. And living in California, it's easy to do that. You hang out at the health food stores and you get to try like all the new things like blue-green algae and, so when I got sick, or when I got this diagnosis, it was the first time where I was like, oh, okay, none of my tricks are working. So no longer like just everything from wanting to be completely independent. All of a sudden I had to rely on people, to ignoring my body's signals. All of a sudden I had to listen. Obviously the first thing that I did to empower myself was look at my diet, which had always been very clean and conscious, but like still when you're going through a health crisis, you're like, okay, well, what things can I pull out that are maybe causing inflammation? And now it's common knowledge, but back then no one was talking about nightshade vegetables or, anything causing inflammation. So that kind of like set the foundation for the rest of my life. And I made a really quick decision that I wasn't going to let it take me down. I was like, this is a challenge that I'm up for, and I'm going to destroy every statistic that's out there. And I'm going to prove to people that I can get past this. And if they're struggling with a chronic illness or any kind of autoimmune disease, I wanted to be like a beacon of hope, because back then, this was 15 years ago, there was no Instagram, there was MySpace, but there was no resources. It was, especially with RA, it was considered an older person's disease, and you're just really given steroids and good luck. TNF blockers had just come about, which are the only type of medication that can actually stop the progression of damage, but there's tons of side effects, including cancer being the main one. So I was really determined and inspired. And I think a big part of that for me, which I look back and I'm so grateful, is, and a lot of people would not look at this as a gratitude thing, but I was a single mom and I didn't have a choice. I didn't have the option to lay in bed and cry and like, woe is me. Why is this happening to me? I had to pull my bootstraps up and like figure this out and really, be an example for my son. But I mean, he was literally relying on me to take care of him. So that was really my motivation. And I think I love sharing that piece of advice, because I think when we're going through challenging things, the greatest thing that you can do, my grandma used to say this, is look past your own eyelashes. And even if you're not a parent, there's like somebody else that's like not like doing as well as you. There's always somebody that has it worse. And sometimes we just need to get out of our own way and be like, okay, I'm up for this challenge. What do we need to learn here?
Love that. Oh, that's so beautiful. And something that I was thinking until you just said that last piece about looking past your eyelashes is just how lonely that must have been. And from the beginning, I mean, your entire life, you've been different, and I can relate to that so much, as feeling like I don't belong in this environment that I'm in as a kid, and then as a teenager, and then in college. I just always felt different, and it can be lonely. And I feel like even now, yes, the world's catching up with us health-wise, but you're still a trailblazer. I mean, the things that I learned in your book, I mean, I majored in health and wellness, and I'm a health coach, and I learned so much from your book. And so I'm curious how loneliness, being different, how that's kind of played into who you are and how you've grown as a person over the years.
That's interesting, because I never really felt lonely. I always felt different. I always have felt like I'm kind of like watching everybody else live their life. Like I'm just kind of peeking through the windows. I actually love looking through people's windows. Actually, when I'm like walking at night, I'm like,
yes,
like you can't do that, honey. You're gonna get, like, you're creeping out. I'm like, I just love looking at, but that's how I feel. It's a great analogy. But I never really felt lonely. I've always, I know I'm an introvert, and I feel like I have this tribe of spirits around me all the time. That's probably why I don't feel lonely. And yeah, I've just kind of always embraced it. Like, this is who I am. And again, I think that goes back to having a mom that she never made me feel like weird. Like, I was doing the weirdest things, you guys. Like, if my son did half of the stuff, I would be like, I think we should go.
Like what? I want to hear. I mean, I know some from.
I was just weird. Like, I was talking to spirits at a young age. I was spending time alone. I mean, almost meditating, but it wasn't meditating, but like I would just sit in my room with the lights off. Like, I was doing weird stuff. Talking to things that weren't there, I was just very unusual, and I would dress differently. I would try new things, and sometimes I would get made fun of at school, but like, I always had this confidence. Like, I didn't care because I was just like me. And I think a lot of it was, again, because my mom just always made me feel like I was special, and she didn't judge me for like, try it out, see what that feels like. And I kind of got to figure things out on my own.
Yeah. I'm curious how that correlates to like the different healing practices. Because something I found with my journey is explaining it to other people why you're doing it when you don't really even understand, right? You're just kind of experimenting. Like me explaining why I'm doing coffee enemas to Andrea when I'm like, I don't know, people say it helps and I'm down for anything. So did you find that aspect like lonely or confusing, or was it more like the fun of the challenge for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people in the beginning, when I first got diagnosed, I didn't go the natural route. I almost like in my head was like, let me do what the doctors are telling me to do. And then when it fails, that's how I'll get my family on board with me. And I kind of like knew that was going to happen because especially back then, it was like everyone was so concerned with my health, and they just wanted me to do the right thing and stop the progression of damage and put it into remission. But once that system failed me, just regular Western medicine, I was able to get my family on board and be like, you guys, like, this is a chronic disease. Like, this is something that might be with me forever. And I need to try everything that I can in my power naturally before I just say, I'm throwing in the towel and I'm going to take drugs for the rest of my life. And I think that, they wouldn't have expected anything different from me at that point. I mean, I just was always doing things that was a little different. And I think at that point they were like, oh, sure, of course.
Yeah. I feel like it served you well looking at where you're at now. And I think a lot of people can relate to that of, I don't want to do the medication. I want to go the natural route, but it can be very overwhelming. And that's another reason why I loved your book, is because you break it down into different sections of health. But I'm curious, like, where was your starting point when you're like, these meds aren't working, let's go more natural? Where did you start? What was your approach with that?
Super simple. And I knew that this was going to happen, and maybe I made it happen. But once the side effects of the drugs clouded the actual symptoms of the disease, that's when I was like, this isn't working. And unfortunately, that's the loop that a lot of pharmaceuticals do. It's like, it'll get rid of one problem, cover it up, and then all of a sudden you have acid reflux, or all of a sudden you have irregular periods, or all of a sudden it's like, it's just this vicious cycle if you don't actually seek the root issue. And I think that's the biggest problem with Western medicine, is it's like, we don't address diet. We don't address our lifestyle. We don't even address like socially. Like, I love talking about that. Like, are you happy? Who's your partner? Who are your friends? Do you feel supported? Do you feel like you don't know how to set boundaries? Are you always saying yes? Are you a doormat? Like, I notice a lot of similar personality traits with especially women that have autoimmune disease. They tend to be a lot of givers and not take care of themselves. And it's like, here's life's invitation for you to now have to take care of yourself because you literally can't function anymore if you don't, you know?
Yeah. You talk a lot about that on your podcast and in your book about just the mental piece of disease. Yeah. And I would love for you to elaborate on that. You know, I think it's this internal exploration of why me, like, why is this happening to me? And you talk about that in your book about, you know, being a teacher and things like that. And so how has rheumatoid arthritis been a teacher for you with your mental health?
It has been one of my greatest teachers, like, period. And I feel like just having that perspective in life is so healing if you just kind of put that viewpoint on everything. So instead of thinking, woe is me, like, you know, I lost my job or I got sick or I'm getting a divorce or whatever it is, it's like, okay, like, what's going on here? What am I supposed to learn from the situation? Maybe the universe knows something I don't know. Maybe they're going to bring me somebody better. Maybe I'm going to get a better job. And so instantly, I mean, of course, when I got diagnosed, I allowed myself to grieve and I cried and I was scared. And I did that for about 24 hours. And then I was like, all right, what do we do? You know, and it's just like, you know, it taught me so much. I mean, the greatest example is I was actually in the middle of getting my yoga certification when I got diagnosed. And looking back, I realized that I was going into my yoga certification. I'd been practicing since I was 18. I was a ballerina. I could do all the things. And I just wanted to get my yoga certification, my stamp of approval, so that I could use it actually for modeling, because a lot of the yoga companies were just coming to birth and companies were looking for models that were actually certified yoga teachers. And right when I started this 4-month certification, my body started shutting down. And it got to the point where I couldn't walk. I was like shuffling into class. I could not practice any of the asana, the movements. And my yoga teachers were like, as long as you're here, I will give you credit. Like, they were so kind, of course. But it was the most humbling and torturous experience for me, somebody who used her body her entire life to transmute and communicate as a ballerina. And then that transition into yoga. Now I have to sit on the sidelines. None of my peers know that I can do that. I could even do any yoga. And I had to sit there and watch, and I had to sit there in my own SHIT.
You can swear.
And yeah, and just look at the other aspects. I mean, the perfect example is there's 8 limbs to yoga, and the asana, the movement, is only one limb. And that's what we tend to focus on in the United States. That's what kind of got hit. But if you're learning yoga in the East, like, the first thing you learn is the breath. And, you know, you learn all these other aspects, meditation and pranayama. And so I had to kind of like humble myself and learn, you know, that was the blessing. And learn all these things that I probably wouldn't have learned otherwise. And just having to sit with yourself when you physically can't move, you know, you really start to think about things differently. And I was able to like notice my thought patterns and kind of trace things back to my ballet history and any athlete, anybody can relate to this. It's very critical. It's your coach is judging you, your ballet teacher is judging you, the mirror is judging you, and that becomes your inner critic, and it can become toxic over time. And you're not even aware of it, especially when you're moving and you're productive all the time. So if you just sit still with yourself, it's like allow all that stuff to come up, and then you can kind of start seeding through it and working through it.
Yeah. And I think in today's culture, and that was true for me as well, I was like, I don't want to sit still because I don't want to deal with all of that, right? I don't want to deal with the trauma and my childhood, and being go, go, go allowed me to not have to deal with it. And the same thing with symptoms of let's just quiet these symptoms. But when you actually get to the root cause of anything health-wise, your mind, it's involved. You can't escape the mental health aspect. So I'm curious what that deep work looked like for you. You said, okay, we're not going down the medication route. So what are some of these practices that you feel like really made a difference for you?
Yeah. Well, the first thing I did at the time, I hired this woman by the name of Mina Dobik. She had worked with like Madonna, I think Gwyneth Paltrow. Like, she was like very She was like this secret guru here in LA. She had healed herself from stage 5 ovarian cancer like 30 years prior. So she was through this macrobiotic diet. And I thought, well, let's start there. Let's see what she has to say. And so I went to go see her, and she gave me this crazy schedule. I mean, talk about overwhelming, like just food and not only food, but like every part of my day was regimen. And the time that I ate was associated with an organ. Like in Chinese medicine, it's like, oh, at 3:00, that's your liver, so you need to drink the liver tea, and then you need to walk for 20 minutes after you eat, and then you can't eat after 5 because your body has to digest all the food so you can go to sleep, and you have to chew your food till liquid. But doing all these little things, like they start adding up. Like just chew. I'm just going to focus on chewing your food to liquid. Just that. Chewing your food to liquid is something we should be doing. Slowing down, chewing our food, being more mindful. Not only does it help create enzymes so your body can digest, make natural digestive enzymes instead of just shoving down, enzyme pills, chew your food, but it also helps with mind clarity, clearing your mind. It helps with symmetry of the face, just simple things like that. So I acquired so many cool little tricks. And when you're not feeling well and you give yourself like this schedule, for me at least, it felt empowering, and it felt at least like I was moving in the right direction. Even if like it wasn't working, I felt like I was doing something for myself. I wasn't just, sitting back and letting this disease take over. So diet and lifestyle, and of course, the mind aspect, like in macrobiotic, they believe it's a healing diet. So it's very clean. So literally, like anything that's toxic inside of you that you've ever put in your body comes out. And what they believe you should do when you're doing it is like be mindful of like television, like limit your TV, limit crowded spaces, limit anything that's too expansive. Because what a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't realize that until I was in this situation, but it's really hard to be clean and be regimen when you're in like an expansive or an excited environment. And that's why like a lot of people can relate to this. If you go to a concert, if you go to a club and it's like a lot of loud music and loud people, you almost have to have a drink, or some people that smoke feel like they need to smoke just to calm down the energy that's around you. Or eat bad. Like all of a sudden you want to like eat like something really bad for you because it just needs to balance that energy. So I learned so much from macrobiotic, and I continued, to this day to have little things in my toolbox that I pull from there.
Yeah, I'm so curious about your toolbox because, well, you read a book like this and it's like, what would a day with Jessie look like? I mean, does she always have eucalyptus in her shower? Like, is she naked on her deck every day in the sun? Like, what is she doing? And like, could I hang out, or would she be like, what the hell are you? You can't eat that, Andrea.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, my people.
Which I mean, I've been doing this challenge this month of like specific things that I'm doing. I did every day for 30 days. And reading your book really inspired me because now I'm like, well, what's my next challenge? And there's so many tips in your book, which we haven't even said the name of it. It's the Golden Secrets to Optimal Health. And there's so many tips in it that I'm like, you know what I could do is every month I could just add 2 things in that she said to do that I'm not currently doing. And I can't wait to see what my life looks like. And so I'm just curious what it's like for you to be interacting with other people with your lifestyle now.
Because it is so out of the norm.
Yes, still to this day. Yeah. What's it like being you?
You know what? I feel like everyone is California, it's everyone's like, I don't feel that like unusual.
I think she's telling us we need to move to California.
Yeah, I think you need to move. No, I mean, especially where I live now, Topanga, like everyone's kind of like old hippie vibes. And like, it's funny. We moved here in March and my son got swimmer's ear from surfing, and all the neighbors around here are so cool and stuff. And I had like all these like witchy tips for him. Like, oh, let's like put garlic oil and like hold an onion to the ear, like cabbage leaf and stuff. And he went on a walk with the dogs, and one of our neighbor's girlfriends was like, gave him the same advice. And she's like, I'm kind of a witch. he's like, oh no, my mom is too. Yeah, she told me all that stuff. I was like, okay. I was like, but I was yelling at him because I was like, you listen to her, but you will listen to me. So I think, I think California is always kind of been ahead, but like, I feel like going ahead is actually going backwards. Like, I feel like we need to go back to ancient wisdom. I've always been drawn to ancient wisdom, to anything to do with nature. I always say, like I say in my book, nature first. Mm-hmm. I think there's a place for Western medicine 100%, but I don't think that should be our first resource,
Why do you think we've gotten so far away from it?
Money.
Yeah, I didn't want to say
it. Unfortunately. I mean, it's, you follow the money, I mean, there's so much history. Like, if you really look into like doctors and like what they're taught and who's funding what, and, it's really sad. Like, just doctors aren't taught anything on diet. It's kind of crazy that, food is thy medicine, yet they don't learn anything about.
Yeah. Something Brooke and I were talking about where, if you hear us saying, oh, there's so many tips in it, it could sound like it would be really overwhelming, but your book really does get back to the basics of slowing down, taking care of yourself, just eating real food. And it's not overwhelming. The way that as you read this book, you're like, wow, I could actually save some money by making these cleaning products in my own home. And then we'd probably all feel better. And there's just like so many tips in here that you break it down. And I wanted to say too that, if you start to use your skincare products, which you also have, we haven't even touched on the Golden Secret skincare products, is I also felt really like held, like you were holding my hand through the process of trying skincare products, because it's another industry we could talk about where it's about money, and you buy these products and you feel like they said I needed them, but I don't know why I'm using them, and I don't know what they're doing, and I don't even know how to apply it to my face. And then I got your products, and I had an ebook with the oil and the gua sha tool that told me what it's made of, why it's important. I had a video tutorial of exactly where to put the oil on my face and my neck, how to do it, why I'm doing things in specific order. I'm literally like looking at this majestic woman with this serene voice. It was like I was ready to sleep. I'm going to do it every night for the rest of my life. But even doing it with you, I could see results instantly of my face like feeling lifted up and why I was doing it. And you were explaining why. And so I just want to say that you do a lot. You provide a ton of information. You have a ton of skincare products, but with all of them, you explain why it's important to use it and what benefits it can provide you and how to use it. So I just want to thank you for the way that you've done this, making it so accessible.
I'm so honored, first of all, that you recognize that, because it's just like so important to me. When I was writing my book, especially, it's interesting that you guys are from the Midwest, because I wrote the book like I was like writing it for my aunt. Like, how can I get my aunt who like is drinking, pumpkin lattes every day at Starbucks and eating McDonald's every day and like, I don't know, just like not being healthy. How do I explain this to her without getting her overwhelmed or turn her away? Mm-hmm. And I had a lot of experience, because every time I would go back home to Chicago, I would come home with like some new trick or something, and they would be like, what? You guys are doing that? I'm like, yes, trust me. In 2 years, you guys will be doing this. Just trust me. So I had a lot of practice, but when I got diagnosed, I felt so overwhelmed. Everybody had a trick that they thought was, still to this day, people like DM me like, have you tried turmeric? I'm like, you guys, I've drank turmeric for 15 years, like gallons. Okay. Like nothing, but it was really important for me to make it digestible and not overwhelming, and just like very simple, like exactly like what you said in the beginning, like just starting something new and just doing that for 30 days. You don't have to throw all your food out and change your entire lifestyle in one day, because that's not really, it's not going to last long. Just making those little tiny changes every single day and then adding on to that, I think is is much better. And with skincare, it's like, you know, I've been making this skincare for myself forever. I mean, I started making my first product when I was 15. So it's ingrained in who I am. So it's really easy for me to like talk about it and share. And I get so passionate about it because I was on the other side for so long as a model. And I did the marketing for products that I've never actually used. And I sold products that said, oh, this, I look like this because of this product, or if you use this product, you'll look a certain way, or, you know, and I kind of saw like the other side of things. And when I decided to launch my skincare, only because for 15 plus years, people would ask me, what's your golden secret? What's your golden secret? And finally I was like, fine. You know, a friend of mine was like, you have to package that stuff. Like, this is crazy. I was really reluctant. I was really protective at first because they were like my secret potions. But when I decided, okay, I'm going to do this, it was like there had to be more behind it. And that's why I created affirmations with every product, because I want people to use the products as a tool, as an opportunity to practice self-love, because that's like the real inner glow. Like, you're going to be using the best organic products that have been used since ancient times, but also taking that opportunity to check in with yourself and just be like, I'm beautiful. I'm radiant. I am worthy. Like, saying those things. And I always say, if you feel weird saying those things to yourself, it's a sure sign that you need to, because it matters.
I love that. And everything you're saying, it's exactly why after I listened to you on Dr. Will Cole's podcast, I immediately bought your products, because I'm like, she gets it. You know, I think right now with social media, you see all these products and they have all these empty promises. And for me, the last 5 years, the amount of money that I've spent, because when you don't feel good, you're desperate and you're willing to try anything, right? Whether it's supplements or skincare, whatever it may be, you slap natural on it and you're like, oh, okay, this is good for me. So I'm curious with you throughout the years, like, how do you know something's legit? You know, like, what has kind of been your discretion with new products, new trends, because you have been such a trailblazer?
I research like a maniac. Like, I'm insane. I go down rabbit holes. My husband thinks I'm crazy, like the stuff that I'll just be like, oh, honey. And then today I was like looking up that thing and he's like, oh my God. And then I'll study something for like 10 hours. Like, I get very obsessed about things. So I think at this day and age, you have to do your own research. And, you know, even like you said, like, oh, it says natural on the front. It's like, look at the ingredients on the back, you know, look at the ingredients, do your own research. There's great websites now, like EWG, Environmental Working Group, where you can research ingredients, you can research products, you can research companies. It'll tell you how toxic it is. It'll tell you if it's reproductive, if it's cancerous, if it's, you know, nowadays, I think there's so many great resources because consumers are finally, you know, pulling the veil back and being like, wait, I think it's because there are so many options too. There are so many options. We're so like, you know, overwhelmed with so many options. And unfortunately, just like pharmaceuticals, the people with the most money are the ones winning because they have the marketing budget to push things. That doesn't mean that they're the best. It certainly does not mean that they're the best. They just might have the biggest budget to hire, you know, the Kardashians or whoever's the biggest thing to, you know, be the face of whatever. So you have to do your own research. And I think that that's actually pretty easy these days, you know?
Yeah, well, I like that you gave an example of the EWG, like, you know, going through trying to figure out what sunscreen to buy for your kids is tough. It's like, I don't know, like it says it's mineral based. Like, if you're a consumer, like you said, the marketing, it gets you.
And
like,
the price.
That looks the most natural. It says this thing. It's, you know, from a brand I've seen for years. So like, it must be pretty safe, right? And so I think giving an example of, yes, do your own research, but like find an actual site that's not biased or trying to sell you something. So EWG.org is what it is, right?
Yeah. And I mean, that even goes with, I just discovered this as a consumer, as a business owner, trying to get into real retail space and different blogs and stuff. Everything has to do with money. So like, even you can't even believe influencers anymore because everything is paid. And unfortunately, a lot of people are going to sell out. And if they get paid enough money, they're going to promote something. There's even websites now like blogs. I had no idea that like these shopping blogs and stuff, like people charge companies to be on there. So if you have the money, it doesn't actually mean that that influencer loves that product and they genuinely use it. It's that that company paid them to put it on their website. So you really have to do your own research. And I say, one of the great ways I love checking, because it's something that I'm so proud of as a business owner. And it's because I had to take this route because I am a small company and I didn't have a big budget. I don't have a big budget, is reviews, verified reviews. You can see an ad for something and it's like in your face, in your face, in your face. And then you go to the website and they have no reviews. That's a red flag. Verified customer reviews, I think, is a great way to like back up a company, because it's real customers. You can't like delete it or change it, or, you know, it's actually legit. And I think that's one of the best ways to like verify a company as well.
Yeah. I think for me too, it's the owners or the creators why. You know, like hearing your story, it's like what you went through. Like, would you really put this stuff on your face? Probably not. And so trusting the organization, the people, even with different gut health supplements, of getting really specific on, do they have a story? Have they struggled with their health, or are they just selling something? You know, are they a coach who actually went through their own struggles and know what they're talking about, or are they just selling something because they're getting paid?
Yeah.
It's easy to just trust and, oh, yep, this is good. But to actually take the time to do the research, I feel like people don't want to do that.
Yeah.
They want to rely on people to just tell me what to do. Tell me what to do. You have to take responsibility for your health.
Yeah. Well, and we're in this space where we're getting money thrown at us to sell things, right? Because like Brooks, anything she puts on TikTok, it blows up. And so it's like, people are like, oh, can you talk about my vitamin, or can you talk about my supplement? And it's like, well, can we try it first? Like,
yeah, that's exactly right. Like with affiliate deals, because I'm an affiliate for a lot of companies, but I only share products that I actually use and love, like period. And people reach out to me all the time and I say, send me the product. I'll try it for 30 days. And if I genuinely love it, I'll share it with my audience. And I don't need to get paid. Like I'll take the affiliate cut, which is like 10%. I just want to share. It's always been my passion. And I could tell with you ladies too, it's like, I just want to share things that have helped me and that have worked for me. And you can't, I would never be able to sell out. You guys, like, I've never done, like, I remember in the beginning, like everybody I know in the modeling industry was doing like waist cinchers and like skinny tea and like teeth whitening. Like, and I could have really used the money as a single mom. I couldn't do it. Like, I literally couldn't do it. I was like, but I don't believe in this stuff. Like, especially coming from a modeling background where I didn't have a voice and I was getting booked on jobs that like I had no control over. It was, I mean, of course I could have said no, but back then it was different. It wasn't like seen everywhere. And so, I did Burger King commercials and Taco Bell commercials. And nowadays I would never do that, you know, because I feel like I am my brand and like what I'm selling is who I am. Back then it was different. You know, you could kind of separate yourself, but now that I have a voice and I have a choice, like it's so important for me to only share things that I genuinely believe in.
Is it challenging for you to have a brand and to have products that you know in your heart and soul have helped your skin and so many people's, and it's legit? Like, is it hard for you to, you know, not be in the stores like these brands are that you know have a ton of chemicals in them? Like, what's that like, knowing that you have integrity in yours? Yeah.
It's so frustrating. I mean, my poor husband hears me bitch about stuff a lot. I'm just like, I don't understand. When are people going to get it? Why is it, you know, and even with my team, like last week, even on this health website, I don't want to say the name, but it's like a natural skincare website that I actually want to get my products into. And I'm looking at every product and I'm like, I would never put this shit on my face. Like, what is going on here? Like, who is the buyer? What is happening? And again, you go to the website and you think that like it's fine because it's like vetted by whoever. And half of the stuff is just like, I wouldn't buy anything.
Yeah, like who is classifying this as natural? Like, how do they get to be on this site if their products really aren't natural? And that's something that I found myself too, is like going down that rabbit hole of like, is there such thing as too clean? Or, you know, because I think you can go crazy with this stuff. For me, it was like changing out all the products and spending all this money. So it's like, how do you find that line? Like, is it slowly building your home to be non-toxic? Or like, what do you recommend to people who are listening and are like, that's great, but like, I don't want to spend $100 on a product, or I don't want to spend 100 hours researching. Like, what would you say to those people?
I always say like, well, for skincare, for example, like start with like what you use most often. So if you're using like St. Ives every day on your body, maybe switch that out. You know, just like the one product that you're using the most. Cause like by now everyone knows your skin's your largest organ. So like whatever you're putting on your skin, it's either doing good for you or it's doing bad for you. So whatever you're using most often, switch that out to non-toxic and organic if you can, and fragrance free, because fragrance by far is like one of the most, not by far, but I think it's one of those things that is a loophole. It's actually a loophole. It's a trade secret loophole. So people can use just the word fragrance and it can actually contain over 1,000 different chemicals, because it's a way to protect their trade secrets. So if you see that term, don't use it. And it's in everything. It's in candles. It's in garbage liners. It's my son the other day, I had him go pick up garbage liners and I was like, what is that smell? What is that smell? And he stopped at the little corner store and all they had was like these scented garbage. And I'm like, why? Like, why are they trying to kill us? Like, I'm very sensitive to any kind of artificial scent like that. I had to throw them out. I couldn't even do it. I couldn't even do it with a garbage can. So, I say start with like what you use most often. And then whenever you like get rid of something, try and exchange it for something cleaner, you know, fragrance free, laundry detergent or fragrance free soap. With soap, I buy like these big like castor oil soaps on Amazon, and you can just add your own essential oil, a little bit of lemon or a little bit of orange oil, and you can use it for pretty much everything, you know?
Yeah. What would you say to those people? It doesn't have to be expensive. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something I learned with your book, because a lot of the people in the holistic field, you know, the functional practitioners that I follow on social media, it's like, it's expensive products. And I'm like, I am paying all these medical bills and then I'm trying to change products. And so hearing what you said, like adding in essential oils, those little things that you can do. So what would you say to those people who are like, toxin free isn't as effective? You know, like, because in the book you have recipes on how to create all-purpose cleaners and heavy-duty bathroom cleaners. So I'm curious what you would say to those people who are like, this stuff doesn't do anything.
Well, it's BS. There's actually studies like on, I think it's tea tree oil. Tea tree oil is like so disinfectant. I don't know the actual studies, but I know that there are studies on tea tree oil versus like bleach or something. And then I actually had a product that was a limited edition product, and it was based on thieves oil, which was created in like the 1500s with the Black Plague. And there was these two guys that like stole all this stuff from the perfumery, and it was like clove and eucalyptus and rosemary and lemon. And all these people within like 5 feet of them were dying. And they were like, how did you not die? Like, what's going on here? And they had this thieves oil in their mask. And it actually ended up becoming something that doctors would then put in their mask since like the 1500s. So like, we have all these like little tricks and things that we can use that are non-toxic and that are good for us. And I just don't fall for it. Like, you know, that we have to use all these. And there's a difference between like good germs and bad germs. Like we actually want to be with our hands and feet in the dirt. Obviously, we don't want like viruses that are going to make us sick, that's like a whole nother thing. Like you need to wash your hands, but at the same time, we don't want to destroy the like microbiome of our skin. And, that if that gets shifted by using harsh soaps or using harsh products or even the environment or clothes that we're wearing, not wearing natural fabrics and stuff like that. So I think this whole like sanitization craziness, is a little, I think it's actually destroying us.
Yeah.
Some germs are good, it's like when you have kids, it's like, let them get sick, let them put their hands in their mouth and get their dirt and get all that good gut flora and like microbiome and diversity. And, you kind of want them to build up their immune system and,
yeah, nature. And I love in your book too, you talking about nature, of getting outside, which it's tough. I mean, it's like 16 degrees here and really windy today. I walked to my mailbox and I'm like, I bet if Jessie Golden lived here, she would walk to her mailbox every day in the sun. But it's tough in Minnesota. You lived in Chicago to be outside. I wish I was in California. But I want to talk about the sun because you have a relationship with the sun and some rituals in the sun and opinions about sunscreen. And so I would just love for you to talk about your relationship with the sun and your skin and just go into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think I've always talked about my love for the sun and I think you guys can appreciate it. Anybody that grows in the Midwest, when the sun comes out, we kind of worship it because we don't see it that often. So even as a kid growing up, like my dad would be like, go outside and get some sun. It was always viewed as like this healing thing. And I knew that I felt amazing in it. And then when I moved to California, I was always tan. I've always kind of had darker skin for being blonde. And people would always say, how are you so tan? How are you so tan? I'm like, we live in California. Like, I'm in the beach every day. What do you mean? But like everyone was terrified of the sun out here, sunscreen and like hiding. And I'm like, what is going on? And so I kind of got on this like pedestal of like, I'm going to prove to I'm going to like be an advocate for the sun. And now it's really cool because I've seen on social media that people are finally getting the hang of it. And like now that all these sunscreens are getting recalled, people are understanding. But simply put, if you want to see something die, deprive it of the sun. We are living beings and our entire body, our mitochondria, everything gets alive and energized from the sun. We need the sun. We get our vitamin D from the sun. Our eyes dilate in the sun. Like everything revolves around us getting the sun. We are designed, or we were designed when we used to spend 90% of our days outdoors during the warmer months to store enough vitamin D and enough sunshine in our bones to last us through the winter. But what's happening is in the summer, people are in front of their computer all day, and then maybe they'll go outside around 12 o'clock and throw on sunscreen, which blocks, the assimilation of vitamin D and all the benefits of the sun. And they're not actually getting all of that beautiful benefit. And then they're going through the winter and they're low on vitamin D, which is linked to more cancer. And it's just like this downward spiral. So I think no matter where you live, even if you're in a cold environment, you can do 5 minutes. You can get as much as your body to the sun just for 5 minutes. I think it's so important. And, I'm really lucky that I live in California because I've talked about this. I get naked pretty much every day and like expose as much as my body as possible to the sun so it can receive it, including the eyes. I think, sunglasses was like a big fashion statement, but we're losing that light with our eyes too. We need that. We need that light. So I just feel like we need to be more connected to nature in all ways. And being outside in the sun is just one of the most beautiful ways to connect. And I feel like the further we stray from nature, the worse off we're going to be. And we're fighting against like all this technology, which is blue light. And that is so harmful. So the sun, all things in moderation, like you could get safe sun. You don't have to like go out and get burned. And how your body responds to the sun says more about your health than anything. So if you go outside and burn, maybe you're eating too many processed foods or too many seed oils, or, look at your diet. So you should be able to receive the sun. And depending on the melanin in your skin, that will determine like how much time you need. When your body turns flush is your cue to get out of the sun. And that's different for everybody. That's your cue. The body is so freaking amazing that you've gotten enough vitamin D. And then that's when you put on sunscreen if you want, or you seek shade, or you throw on a hat. But just going outside and putting on these toxic things on us, and then, eating all this horrible stuff and then blaming the sun, it's like, come on.
Yeah. I did not know that with food.
Yeah. Well, and I was going to say too, because you're like a walking, like you own a skincare line and you're like, don't put on the sunscreen. That is so controversial in your space. Mm-hmm. And so that's really why I wanted to talk about, because there is more to it than just what you're putting on your skin. You talk in your book about what you're eating and how that can protect you. And then, or the opposite effect, like you said, if you're having too many seed oils or processed foods, you'll burn faster, or there's so much more in your book about it. But I'm just curious more about that. So like for you, you don't ever burn hanging out in the sun.
I never burn. I think I burned once when I was like 12 and I went to Mexico and put on like Hawaiian tropic oil all day.
Well, and you don't have any wrinkles either. And so like you are physical proof that it's possible to not wear sunscreen by taking good care of yourself and still exposing yourself to the sun.
Well, I do have wrinkles, and I think that's normal at my age. But what I don't have is I don't have hyperpigmentation. And I think that's a big thing that is I get so frustrated with the beauty industry on what they try and tell women to do on how to get rid of hyperpigmentation. And basically everything they tell you to do is going to create more hyperpigmentation. These hydrochloroquine or bleaching stuff, and basically things that destroy, the barrier of your skin. And then the second you go in, not only in the sun, but any kind of heat, hyperpigmentation is going to happen. Or this new dermabrasion that everybody's on. Like, we need those vellus hairs on our skin. They're there to protect us. Like, our skin was designed to keep more things out than in. And when you remove that hair from your face, it's going to expose you to more environmental stressors, including sun damage, hyperpigmentation, birth control, antibiotics. All these things affect how you receive the sun. I get so fired up about this stuff, but I always feel like, if you like, going back to seed oils, by the way, like I just read this study about how cancer was not even a thing prior to the invention of sunscreen and seed oils. Like, our ancestors didn't deal with this kind of stuff. So the sun hasn't changed. It's our diet that's changed and how we're able to receive the sun. So, I just feel like if we just go back to more simpler ways and just do things kind of how our grandparents or great grandparents did it, we would be better off. And they were outside. They were outside enjoying the sun and eating good fats and using natural products, because everything was natural. Everything, there was no need for organic because everything was organic. There was no all these pesticides and all these things. So, yeah.
I feel like you're so knowledgeable on it and you've been living it for so long that I bet it's hard for you to even get back to the basics of like why this is important, right? Well, like we had two skincare episodes where we're talking about retinol and we're talking about like her number one rule was put on sunscreen every day. And so, every episode is, we just want your story and your opinion and what's true to you, right? And so everybody can say whatever they want and nothing is like 100% fact. We know that. But I think your perspective is so great to hear, because it's getting back to the basics of like, before we even talk about the skincare stuff or get your awesome oil that I'm obsessed with, I got to think about what I'm putting in my body first, because I can do all the tricks, but I get like acne down here, hormonal acne, because around the time I'm period, I'm eating like shit. And so then of course it's flaring up because I'm eating like shit and I'm hardly drinking water and drinking more alcohol. Like, what do you think's going to happen? And so I just love that. Again, your book is just the basics of the earth and the herbs and the practices. That's not just physical. It's your mental health. Like there's a chapter on laughing. Like it's so,
and sex.
Yeah. It's so great. And I
just have to say one more thing about sunscreen.
Yeah.
Please do.
Please.
Because it's so important. Well, first of all, sun therapy or heliotherapy was the number one recommendation that doctors made before the invention of antibiotics. It's still used in cancer treatments to this day. So it's so healing. And talking about acne, it's antibacterial. It's amazing. But talking about sunscreen and why I feel like the beauty industry, so much of the beauty industry, and bless their hearts, but so many dermatologists are just, I feel like, taught wrong. And I happen to disagree with most of what they tell people. But a lot of sunscreens actually separate UVA and UVB light. So when you go out into the sun without anything on, you're getting the full spectrum of light. That's the healing light that we want. We want all those colors, especially in the morning, when the sun rising with the beautiful red light and all that stuff. When you put on some sunscreens, it blocks UVB. So you're only getting UVA. UVA is what is skin damaging. So sometimes sunscreen actually makes it worse, especially if what's in the sunscreen are high PUFA seed oils like grapeseed oil or hemp seed oil. Those oxidize as soon as they touch your skin. And then when you go in the sun, it's actually going to degrade your collagen and matrix rapidly. So like all these things that they're telling you to do are actually making it worse. Like that's what I'm like trying to get the point across. I'm like, you'll be better off. Even with self tanners, people think, well, maybe I'll just do the self tanner. Self tanner has an ingredient called DHA, which is what gives you that toasty color, and it has that weird funky smell because it's literally burning the top layer of your skin. And when you put that on and you go into the sun, it actually is, I think it's like 80% more degrading, more sun damage happens. I mean, it's like, so people think they're doing the right thing, but what you'll notice, what I always noticed in the modeling industry, is the people that were doing all the things, all the retinols, all the La Mer, all the this, all the facials, they had horrible skin. They had horrible skin. They did. And here I was doing oil cleansing and going to the health food store and buying like weird hippie stuff and like putting things together. And I was like almost embarrassed of the things that I was doing because I didn't have all the tricks. And now looking back at 44, my skin looks better than a lot of these people. And I'm like, I think we're onto something, guys. I think if we just connect back to nature, like we're going to be okay.
You're like the test of time, right? Because I mean, we live in this world where marketing is king. It is.
And money
and marketing is king, and it works. And they've figured out how to work our brains and get our wallets out. And I'm a complete victim of it. I mean, I realized too, just by hearing your story and just how your entire life I've been like, I'm just going to do a little bit different than everybody else. Like, I wish I was more like you where I could trust that, that self-trust of something's off here and I'm going to try it my own way, and I think more people, and that's what we try and promote with people is, we've started a new business and a podcast and want to do things our own way where we allow people to just tell their truth and their stories that are raw and then maybe they haven't told before. And I just feel like you can easily coast with social media and just do what you're told and buy what you see. And like, I want to encourage people to do more of what you're doing, where it's like, wait a second, is this working? Like, do I feel better? Is it helping me? And then we can just look at you and be like, okay, this works. What she's doing
is the anti-aging cream really anti-aging or is it aging me?
Yeah, I see anti-aging. I'm like, yes, okay. I'll try it.
Marketing. I mean, it's again back to taking ownership and responsibility and not believing everything you hear and, being smart about it. Like asking yourself those questions and not believing everything you read or hear, which is something that I've had to retrain my brain to do. So it's not easy for people listening. It's like, it can seem overwhelming because you think of what our norm is, it's when that's been your life, I think start now. Like there's never too late to start and to make these changes, but also giving yourself grace of why it is difficult. And because of big pharma and money and marketing, like it does make it harder to really go back to the basics.
I think learning to trust your own instinct, like just listening to you ladies, like I feel like we're in a society where we're like told to trust everybody else, or what's this? Everybody's got this complex now. What's this complex everyone's talking about? Like people don't have they don't feel worthy enough to trust their own self, basically. They feel like they need to go outside of that and get it from a doctor or wisdom from somebody else that like has a lot of followers, or, but I think just trusting your instinct in those little things, like if your voice says, turn right instead of left right now, or leave home now instead of 5 minutes, like just listening to those inner voices throughout the day, that voice will get louder and louder the more you listen to it. And then you'll kind of start to trust your own way. And it's very hard in this world where we're being bombarded by so much information. And I think that's why it's so important to take time each day to be free of podcasts and television and Instagram, and just go for a walk or meditate, or just so you can kind of hear what your inner guidance is trying to tell you, because we all have like that inner compass, but either we don't trust it or we can't hear it.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad you said that, because that's, I think, in my healing journey, why meditation has been so huge is because I've learned like I am my own best doctor and I know my body best. And with everyone that's been turning to me for gut health guidance, it's like there isn't one secret trick or one secret supplement, right? Like you have to do the deep work of tuning out that outer noise, doing what's best for you. But the minute you go back to normal life, right, it's eat this food and it's convenient. And so you have to keep taking that time to slow down, to realign, so that voice becomes loud and you can really connect with it. So I'm so glad you said that.
And something both of you have said is and I know you've said previously, is people have suggestions for you. Have you tried this? Have you tried this? And I know that that's a big piece of coaching, is like, okay, once we get off the phone, the floodgates are going to come back in. Mom's going to have an idea, or your uncle or whoever is going to tell you what's best. And that's, something we try and talk to people about a lot, like whether it's your career path or, some type of new diet you want to try, or, a new practice in your family. I think it's important. Like we have these callings, like we all know those things we want to work on and try. And I think, something that you brought up a few times is your mom, and listening to her episode with you on your podcast was so cool, because I can see why you've created what you've created. If you have that safe space to be who you are, I mean, you've created some really cool things. I mean, your products are cruelty-free. You have solar power plants. You have solar powered
manufacturing facility.
Thank you. Solar powered manufacturing. You like provide trees for, purchases. Like if you buy something from the Golden Secrets, like you're planting trees. And so I just think it shows, maybe your parents didn't give you permission to be who you are, but give yourself that permission. If you don't feel like you were hurt as a kid or you couldn't be who you are, like there's value in listening to those things, and you can really provide some beautiful things in the world like Jessie has, because I feel like I'm benefiting from your mom letting you be who you are.
That's so sweet.
What's your mom's name? Marianne?
Yeah.
Shout out, Marianne.
Yeah. She'll love that.
Yes. I just keep hearing the trusting yourself, trusting that voice to do what you believe is best, because if you listen, it'll tell you. Which leads me to my next question, Jessie. I'm curious, with you being a badass entrepreneur, how busy you are, like how do you juggle taking care of yourself, healing, but also navigating being an entrepreneur and life?
I'm still learning. I think just acknowledging that balance is actually a never-ending balance. Like there's never a final destination, but just seeking it is balance, So I'm so grateful that I have a very supportive husband who allows me the time that I need to take to work and to take care of myself. Like, he's incredible. And my son is now 18, so he's, I'm like, okay, now it's your turn to take care of me. But I mean, my life has been constantly evolving. I mean, I've had like the craziest moments where I was a single mom trying to start a company, and I was sick, and I was just like thinking about how I did that. I don't even know how I did that. um, to where now where, I definitely have more balance in my life. And I say, when people ask me about like business and how I like kind of keep everything, I just kind of do what's in front of me. Mm-hmm. As weird and as simple as that sounds, like I just do things as they come, so things don't like stack up. And if my son wants my attention, then that takes precedence still to this day. Like, he'll show me like 30 surf videos a day, and I'll be like, okay. But yeah, I think just seeking balance. I think we all have that challenge.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Yeah. And especially too with kids too, that, I have young ones right now, and building a business. It's, I constantly feel like I could be doing more here or more here or more here. And I like what you said about kind of being where your feet are, right? Like being present in, okay, these hours of the day are for this, and then these hours are for this. And I'm going to just do that when I'm there. It sounds so simple, but it's tough when you've got a million business things going on in your head. When you're sitting with a child, it's like, oh my gosh, I need to turn this off. I got to turn this off and just be here.
That's why I make lists. Like, anytime I have a thought, I just write it down so I can always come back to it. Because I'm a big believer in just taking breaks too, like self-care breaks, like going on walks or going to hang upside down or doing a little yoga, or like just getting off the computer, because so much of what my day consists of now has to do with technology. And so I really need to like take those breaks for my eyes and just for my mental health,
I'm just imagining you on your deck naked, doing your inversions around your house, staring into the sun with no sunglasses, like all of these things that are clearly they're benefiting you, but they're just so different. And not even that, just learning more about you, knowing all the different spiritual practices you've done and things you've tried. It's like, I feel like I could talk to you for another 3 hours about the random things that I know about you, just to hear more.
Well, it also gives me hope that like, because I do believe I cannot run a successful business if I'm not well. And that has been like priority number one. And what I love so much about our relationship is like Andrea supports that, right? When I'm thriving, the business is better, and vice versa. And you're proof too that you have to prioritize your well-being. You have to take care of you. Those breaks are needed. Those naked sunbit, like that's productive. That is adding to the business and your success.
Yeah. And sometimes, having an ailment or an illness, like I said, can be motivating. For example, I didn't share a lot of this till recently, but last year, 2 years ago now, right in the middle of COVID, I decided to do, I needed 2 hand surgeries on both of my hands from RA. My joints had shifted and the tendons had fallen off the bone. So that was fun.
Oh my gosh.
And I was right in the middle of the busiest time of my business. And I wasn't in manufacturing yet. I was still handcrafting everything. So I had to hire help, and my son and my husband were home. So I put them to work. But I did everything with my left hand for 6 months, taught myself how to do everything with one hand. And I mean, like filling bottles and putting on stickers and putting things together, and not only, brushing my teeth and stuff. I don't think I washed my hair for a while. And then I went right into doing surgery on my right hand, but my left hand was still new to me. It was like getting a new hand. So I was learning how to use that hand. And this was during the craziest time of my business. Over the period that I did handcraft, I did over 25,000 bottles before I got into manufacturing, and with one hand, either the right hand or the left hand. And a lot of people didn't know this. I actually, while we were going through it, I didn't want to share because COVID, everything was going on. And I was like, oh, I don't want people to think like this is weird that I only have like one hand or something. So a lot of facilities were shut down. But, it was motivating for me too. Like, I have to keep going. And so it motivated me to, do my hand therapy and get things going. And I think it was really part of me getting my hands back to where they are now is just like doing all that movement and not being complacent. And,
Yeah.
Oh, that's so powerful. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Well, Jessie, I just want to say Jessie Golden, because I cannot believe I'm talking with you. It's been this like buildup of, man, we could ask her a million things, and there's, so many things we could thank you for what you've put into the world. But we want to make sure everybody knows where to find you so that they can get an ebook, or they can get your actual book, or they can learn how to use a gua sha, or they can, get more of you on social media. So where can our listeners find you?
I think Jessie Golden on Instagram is probably where I post most often. And then I also have jessiegolden.com where I share like everything and anything that has helped me in my life. And then thegoldensecrets.com. And we also have an Instagram and TikTok and Pinterest and all that stuff.
Awesome.
She's everywhere. If you're looking to heal and get some inspiration and learn about different products, and I love following you too for the products that you do post and your page on your website. It's amazing. And if you want to try the Golden Secrets, you can use code GOLDIVY for a discount. Jessie and her team have been so gracious for that. So thank you. We want everyone to experience this gold, literally.
Yes. And we'll put it in our show notes too, so that you can link right to the site, and we'll have our discount code there too.
Yes. Well, thank you again, Jessie. And we have more. We want more from you. So your 3 gold stars, these are your 3 takeaways that you'd like to leave our listeners with.
I would say stay close to nature as possible in all ways. What you eat, put on your skin, your lifestyle, fabric, everything that you do. The second thing, we kind of touched on this, I think looking past your own eyelashes. And this could be taken in so many ways, but I was just talking to my son about this, and I think your audience would appreciate it, is sometimes I feel like we think we're not good enough to like share ourself or our gifts. But if you switch it and you think that you're actually being selfish if you don't, maybe it'll motivate you a little bit more. So like, looking past your own eyelashes, getting out of your own way and just doing, what lights you up, what you came here to do, because only you have gifts inside of you that only you can bring to birth. And then lastly, I would say, listen to your instinct. It will not steer you wrong.
Oh my,
so
gosh. Oh, I just want to sit with you and drink some matcha somewhere. Okay. Next up is Unleashing Ivy. So these are 3 rapid fire surprise questions that we didn't tell Jessie about.
My question, Jessie, is if you could only use one skincare product for the rest of your life, what would you choose and why?
The Heal All Oil from the Golden Secrets, because it addresses over a dozen skin conditions and it can be used in a multitude of ways. It's 100% organic, essential oil free, EWG approved, and it helps with everything from like acne, blemishes, anti-aging, collagen building, hair growth, cuts, burns, scrapes, diaper rash. You can use it on your lips, your eyes, your eyebrows. I mean, all over body glow oil. I literally always say that, like if I was on a desert island, what would I bring? The Heal All Oil.
And I actually read reviews on it because I'm about to purchase it for my kids because they have a few scars from, different things. And I read a specific mom whose son had like a skin condition from a pool and had all these little dots on his neck, and it healed it. And so I'm like, oh, I'm going to use that on my kids. So
that's one of my favorites because there's so many reviews from people that had gone to talk about dermatologists, like dermatologist to dermatologist, put on antibiotics and put on like retinol and put on, I don't even know what they give you for eczema and psoriasis and stuff, and nothing would work. And then they use the Heal All Oil and it's gone. I'm like, Oh
Oh my
Amazing.
gosh.
That's got to be so fulfilling.
yeah, those are my favorite. Like to get the reviews, it's just like that's why I do all this hard work.
Yeah.
So where would people put that in their routine? Would it be just like any time of the day? You don't have to put it with different products. Do you use it as a cleanser? Like if someone's like, I'm going to buy it right now, how do they use it?
I use it as an oil cleanser. So
Okay.
I cleanse my skin with it at night, removes makeup, everything without stripping the skin of its natural oils. And then you can also use it as a moisturizer, like just on your skin, like a facial oil. You can use it all over body glow oil. You can use it like to spot treat. Sometimes I make a little face scrub with it. I'll add a little like pearl powder or baking soda in my hand with a little drop, and it makes a nice little exfoliant. There's endless ways, and they're all on the website, like tons of ways to use it.
Gosh, go get the heel oil. That was the first product I ever bought. When I heard you on Dr. Will Call, I was like, sold.
Oh, I'm debating on my question because I want to go two different directions. Okay.
Trust your instinct.
Yeah. Okay. So I kind of hinted at this, that you're very open to the woo-woo-y. You said you're even a witch. Like you've tried, I know about manifesting and different things. And so I'm curious if there's like any out of the norm practice you've tried that like maybe people don't know about, or something you do on a regular basis that's a little out there.
Oh my God. I feel like everything I do is out there at this point. But something I shared recently during Halloween, and a mom reached out to me and she was like, thank you so much. It worked, is just cutting an onion. Like if your child's sick or if anyone's sick, cutting an onion in half. You can put the onion in the socks. I'm sure people have heard about that. It draws everything out, the sickness out, but also just putting the onion next to the bedside table. It supposedly like pulls the sickness out. And it's just something I always did when my son was sick. I always like pulled out the crystals and like did the tricks with the onion. And this mom like messaged me right after I posted that. She's like, my son was so sick and I did the onion trick and he woke up like feeling so much better.
I'm going to do that tonight. My daughter has a cold.
I was just thinking
Perfect.
Okay, I'm pairing this in because you're talking about kids. I'm throwing in a bonus question because I just need to know. As a mom in your life, like you say, your son is the other large teacher in your life. And so I'm curious, like what's your biggest lesson that you feel like you've either taught him or he's taught you in your life?
He taught me self-love.
How?
Through him, I realized that I needed to love myself. You know, so everything since the day I found out I was pregnant, I started doing for him. And like through, like, I never had that love for myself, when I think a lot of women experience that, unfortunately. When they get pregnant, it's like the first time they actually start caring about what they put on their body and what they're eating. And it's like, why don't we give ourselves that love anyways? Like, you're just as precious as that baby inside of you, but we don't. So he really taught me about self-love and self-worth, like just feeling valuable, because to me, he's obviously like the most amazing, and I was like, oh, so yeah, that I would definitely say self-love.
Yeah, it's interesting because it can be flipped. A lot of people, like you mentioned, like it's a badge of honor to be selfless. She was so selfless. She did everything for me and never did anything for her. And I like that perspective of, they need you. Don't you want to be in their life? You have to take care of you. And you're modeling how to, how they should take care of themselves by what you're doing.
Yeah.
I love it. All right. And last question, Jessie, what is one thing you wish you would have known sooner?
Oh, geez. I think this goes back to my son again, because he's 18 and I'm just kind of like thinking about all the things that I wish I could have done. I wish I would have, it's not even that I've known sooner, but I just wish that like, I would have felt more valuable. Like, I wish I would have said yes to more things. I had this, looking back, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I can't believe I was insecure. I can't believe I thought that I wasn't worthy of that, or that I couldn't do that. I wish I would have said yes to a lot more things. I think I kind of pushed a lot of success away because I was scared or I didn't feel worthy. And I was trying to explain this to my son and it didn't come out right, but I said, you are probably going to be the best you'll ever be right now. And he took it as a negative, saying, Mom, what are you talking about? Like, I'm going to get better and better. But what I meant was like, at this age, at like 18, like you're so young and vibrant. And like, I was specifically talking about his surfing. And I was like, I want you to capture it and like know how amazing you are. So I wish like, I wish, because I wish I had that. I wish I would have known like how good I was at certain things at that age. And I think it's important for people to feel that, whatever it is that they are worthy, and to say yes to more things.
Yeah. I'm hearing the trust and stepping in your power, believing in you.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I don't want this time to end. I'm so sad, but I'm so grateful for you and just your life. Like, you are so needed in this time of our life where social media and all of the noise, like a presence like you is like someone that can help simplify things and get us more connected to nature and back to our instincts. And just, it's so simple, but we need someone to say it louder. So I'm so glad you have your platform and your book and your skincare. And so thank you for sitting with us. It has been such an honor. I can't wait till this airs. I can't wait for everybody to have more access to you and all that you're putting in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I'm so appreciative that all of it. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Oh, you'll be seeing more of us.
Yes. You have no choice.
All right. And Jessie, last but not least, your piece of gold. Would you like to share yours?
Yes, it's actually a quote that's in my book, and I put it into every aspect of my life, but it's every obstacle or challenge in your life is an opportunity to bring more light into your life and others.
This is Gold Ivy signing off.
Listen to your truth and go chase your gold.